3, 2, 1, action. Welcome to the Ho Choko Podcast.
Ao, Mataki. Welcome, my relatives, to Ho Choko at the center of the St. Joseph's Indian School campus. I am today's host, Scott Wooster. Joining me again today is Dr. Damian Costello, Director of Postgraduate Studies and member of the administrative team at NAIITS, an accredited Indigenous learning community. He is a leading expert on Black Elk and played a role in his cause for sainthood. Damian, we've talked about Black Elk's discovery of Christianity in Europe. Today, we will look at what happens when he returns and investigates native Christianity.
Hi, Scott.
Hi.
Great to be here. Black Elk's life is filled with so many of these coincidences, right? You would say the work of the spirits, right? If you believe in that. He had said in that letter that he wanted to go see where Jesus was, where he lived, to sort of find out about this for himself. Well, just as he's writing that letter, 6 months after, Jesus showed up in the ghost dance.
Okay.
He gets news of this new movement that had come from the West of a native Messiah who was going to renew the world. And so, once again, in the second stage of this indigenous discovery, he jumps in and investigates these native Christian ideas.
Right. Okay, so we're talking about the ghost dance a little bit and its impact on Black Elk. And just give me a thumbnail sketch of the ghost dance and what that would have meant and what time frame we're looking at. 1890, somewhere in those parts, I would assume, but where, when, who, those kinds of things.
Second half of the 1880s, there was a Paiute. This is in Nevada, Lavoca, which means woodcutter, and he had been influenced by Mormons, and I don't know if he got to thinking or he talks about it as a vision, but he was taken up into heaven, and he met Christ. It was a native Christ. He said, "I've heard the cries of my red children, and I'm coming back. The white people killed me the first time, and I'm coming back to you. And I'm going to do what the end of the Bible says. I'm going to renew the face of the earth. I'm going to bring back the buffalo, the dead relatives, in his case it's the fish, and bring the earth back to where it was, that harmony that was lost." And it was a very simple message. Dance this new dance, this round dance, put on this sacred red paint, these new songs, sing those, but I also want you to do what they're asking you to do, to send your kids to school, to work, whether that's on a farm or if you can get wage labor, whatever kind of work you have, work hard, and go to church. This way is two churches, the ghost dance way, the dancing, and then going to church, and to live in peace. Again, there's the two things you could do as a native person at this time to set the settlers off was to start healing people and then start dancing, right?
There we go.
There you go. And they saw natives dancing. They said they're going to war. They're getting ready. We hear that all the time, sort of stereotypically, the war dance, right?
Right.
So anyway, the message spread very quickly, and what was ironic, it was that the residential school survivors who were already starting to emerge were the ones who spread the message because they had contacts in other tribes. They could write letters in English, they could speak English, and they could travel on the railroad. And so this very quickly spreads out from the Great Basin into the Great Plains, and Pine Ridge becomes one of the epicenters of the ghost dance movement.
Which is where Black Elk is at the time.
Yes. He
Okay.
had just come back from Europe. He was processing that. He was working at a store. He had part-time because he had some English, and he was back to healing work.
Right.
And he gets news of this movement a lot of people in Pine Ridge are dancing now, and he hears about it, and he's kind of standoffish at first. He's like, I don't know about this. This doesn't sound like the traditional way. He says, well, I should go check it out, right? That same sort of spirit of openness that he went to Europe with, he went to the dance, and he looked at it for a while, and he says, this kind of looks like my vision, right? Because he had that vision of the sacred hoop with the sacred tree at the center, and there they were dancing in a circle around. They had a pole which symbolized a tree. I said, well, I'll give it a shot. And so he dances, and they like in the Sundance, they fasted from food and water all day, right? And Black Elk did that, and he fell down to the last major vision of his life, where he rose up and flew over the promised land to a native Jesus, man with long hair and an eagle and feather in his hair, and he pierced hands and feet at the sacred tree, 12 men around him. He told Black Elk, everything has been given to me by my Father, and you must say this. So Black Elk goes back, he becomes a leader in the ghost dance, and not clear where this would have gone, this movement. I think what scholars say now is like this was a way of finding a way to have traditional spiritual life within the reservation context, right? Here you are, you're encouraging people to participate in the best way they can, what's being forced on them, but a way of life that preserves the traditional spirituality. But we know what happens, right? What happened in 1890?
Right.
Wounded Knee.
Right. Mm-hmm. So above all, you have this message of hope that is spreading from Nevada towards South Dakota to Pine Ridge to Black Elk. And I can't see it any other way. It sounds like a message of hope to me, but it wasn't seen that way, obviously, by the government, by missionaries at the time, and they did not read that in the same way that Black Elk would have read that. And so you end up with Wounded Knee. And
you have a range of interpretations. Like you had some church people who were very supportive of it, and depends where you were. Like down in Oklahoma, there was even, I think it was an army officer who's like, you know what, this will actually bridge the Christian way and the old ways. We should encourage it. There was a Catholic priest, Father Francis Kraft, he was part Mohawk, and he was definitely an agitator. A lot you can say about Father Kraft, but he went to it. And he said, you know what, this is almost Catholic. He was very supportive of it. But by and large, those with authority, particularly with military authority, overreacted. They sent in reinforcements, including Custer's old regiment, which is a regiment at Wounded Knee.
Right.
And Black Elk, he was at Wounded Knee, not at the initial massacre, but he fought in the aftermath, and he led the people, but interestingly unarmed. He had his sacred bow, but that was no arrows. And he was wounded in the stomach, and they took him back and they tied up his inside so they wouldn't fall out. And he wanted to run back out and basically commit suicide. He says that, I wanted to die. But an elder held him back and said, no, we need you so that we may live.
Because of the pain that he felt that day. Yeah.
Pain, all kinds of pain.
Metaphysical pain, certainly.
So how this relates to his Christian life, he believed very firmly that was a vision of Christ. Like he told John Neihart, who interviewed him for Black Elk Speaks, he said, I saw the Son of God there, right? And in the Lakota way, if you have a vision, you have to act that out in ceremony, right? So Black Elk did that with his vision. His initial vision at the age of 9, when he finally broke down and said, okay, I had this vision, I have to fulfill it. The whole village got together and reenacted it. And so from a certain perspective, this is my perspective, and there's other perspectives. I see his Catholic baptism as that enactment, that sacred ceremony that enacted that relationship with the spirit that had come to him, and that enacted that power that was given to him.
In the ghost dance.
In the ghost dance, yeah. So what's important though, like whatever we make of that, the point is that for the ghost dancers in Black Elk, they are encountering what they understand to be Jesus. So this is an interesting detail. The name for the ghost dance Jesus was Wanikia, he who makes live, which is sort of a great summary of the power that they understood Christ to have, to like bring back the buffalo and the dead relatives and remake the earth. That's the word they used to translate Savior in these different churches and in the Catholic Church. So for people who are in the ghost dance, who are being encouraged by Wovoka, no, you got to go to church. This is a church way. There was no distinction between those spiritualities. And so when the residential schools come in and say, oh no, it's the white Jesus, cut your hair, we're going to beat you if you speak Lakota, everything about your traditions are bad. These people, for them, Wanikia was the person defending their traditions. He was the one who was going to right those wrongs.
Right.
Right? And so they had a spirituality that is the opposite of what we created in the residential schools, of assimilation, not of assimilation, not of injustice, not of this deep trauma, but that hopefulness that you talked about.
Another opportunity missed is the way I look at it. You know, you instead of hope, you bring sadness and pain, and yeah,
it's a great way of putting it, an opportunity missed. And you know, when you miss an opportunity, the cleanup usually is much more difficult.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. Still is.
Still is.
Absolutely. So we're also going to talk to Macaw Black Elk, who is actually a descendant of Nicholas Black Elk, and he will talk to us about his truth and healing work that he's doing at Red Cloud Indian School, which is in Pine Ridge or close to Pine Ridge now. How does your theological work relate to the process of what he's doing or the truth and healing process?
I look at my own work and people who are doing this kind of work as sort of the other side of the coin to his. So he's looking to tell the story in its fullness, right? Get everything out. Hear what has happened, the injustices, the suffering. Let's face it and let's make amends for it. And what I seek to do is to tell the story of, you know, in one part, what could have been, you know, what was there. Like this was there. Black Elk's faith of what he discovered in Europe, what he discovered in the ghost dance, this like real integral hope, authentic hope that came from the people, not from the outside, was there, and it was cut off. What would it look like if our schools had built on that?
Right.
What if that's was our starting point? And we know it wasn't in its fullness, but it can be. And I know it's already started. It's not as if, you know, I have an idea and, you know, St. Joe's right, we're going to turn everything around. You've already started this work in very important, authentic ways, and have been for, I feel, decades, right? What I hope to do is to bring this voice and other voices out to give that story in its fullness, to help continue that work. And so where I work at NATE's an Indigenous Learning Community, it's mostly Native Christians who have this faith in some form, who are saying, you know, the faith of the residential schools, that artificial, from the outside, dominating, imperialistic faith, that's not what our faith was in the beginning. And it's not what my faith is now. And we have real assets to bring to the table to deal with the trauma that our communities are still facing. And we have real gifts that, frankly, the greater non-native world can learn from and needs to learn from.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. Damien, thank you once again for joining us here at the Ho-Chokeh, at the center of the St. Joseph's Indian School campus, where we talk about issues that are central to Native America today. Until next time, everybody stay centered.